I have just been doing some organising of the YouTube videos that haven't been edited yet, and well, I have organised them in 2 months to find out how many videos I've got. The folder at the top, 40 to 44, that's July. You can see it's December. I've already started Vlogmas and I didn't realise. It's June. Welcome back to my channel. If you haven't been here before, my name is Debbie and I read a lot of books, and I finished another one, and this one was Me Talk Pretty One Day by David Sedaris. I'll admit I don't know much about David Sedaris. I don't know why this is on my bookshelf. I'm guessing my dad must have been a fan. I decided to read it even though I don't know much about him. He is brother to Amy Sedaris, the comedian, and so you get a little bit of information about her through his early life. He talks about being one of 6 children, I think it is. I think it's 6 because I remember thinking it was the same as my mum, because my mum is one of 6. And yeah, it's just really funny. Because he's got a bit of a dark sense of humour, and that's right up my alley. I've got quite a dark sense of humour myself. The beginning of the book was kind of had me hooked, really, because it starts with the line, "Anyone who watches even the slightest amount of TV is familiar with the scene. An agent knocks on the door of some seemingly ordinary home or office. The door opens and the person holding the knob is asked to identify himself. The agent then says, 'I'm going to ask you to come with me.'" And I was just like, where's this going? And it basically starts off with his life as a child. He had a lisp, and so he ended up doing some therapy to kind of help him get rid of the lisp. And he wasn't a big fan of those therapy sessions. He didn't like the fact that they were trying to make him talk pretty, hence the title of the book. And yeah, you look at his life as his childhood in North Carolina with his siblings, the relationship with his parents, and his life as a performance artist and doing comedy. And it was just a fantastic book. I thought this was going to be quite a short one because as it's a biography, there's not as much to talk about. Some of my favourite parts of this book were his life in France. He lived in Paris for quite a long time, and there's so much comedy going through the chapters where he's talking about his life in France, because he tried so hard to learn French, and it was like it just wasn't in him to speak French. The way he talks about the way he learned French, it was just really, really funny to me. It kind of reminded me of how I was at school when it came to learning French. I always felt like, because even on my French exchange that I did when I was in high school, because I had 2 students, I feel like there was more French people involved in the programme than there was English people, so all us English kids had at least 2 French people to come with them. Sorry, I'm adjusting myself on my seat. So I had a girl called Elodie and a girl called Julie. But when I was there, they were mainly trying to learn English, so they were using me and speaking, because I remember there was one night when I was at Julie's house, and Julie's mum was just talking to me in English all the time. It was like, I'm here to learn French and you're talking to me in English this whole time. So I felt like the French people got more out of it than I did in that case. The fact that I got a C in French being in the first set was an absolute miracle to me. But the way that David Sedaris talks about how he learned French and how he'd have like one word he tried to insert into conversation every single day, and it was always like the weirdest word just to confuse everybody. And his description of being in a French class where they all had to speak French all the time. And for some bizarre reason, they got into the conversation of Easter. I think it was somewhere around Easter, and they were trying to describe the Easter holiday to somebody from Morocco. It was somebody from Morocco who had never celebrated Easter, had no idea what Easter was, and so they were there you got this entire class of people trying to describe the religious holiday of Easter to somebody who's never celebrated it before in French, and they didn't know certain words in French that were related to the religious side of it. So they were just like, when you take a story like that and put it in the most lamest terms, it just sounds so ridiculous. And I am not judging religion in any way here. It's just that when you try to explain that story to somebody who's never heard it before, it just sounds ridiculous. Because even the French teacher in this book is just like, wait, you have a bunny that goes round giving chocolates to children, a giant bunny, a giant bunny rabbit, and there's David Sedaris in class going, yeah, what do you do? We don't have a giant bunny. How does he get into your house? How does he know where all you live? And he's just there going, you can say the same thing about Santa. But yeah, there's some just great comedy moments. There are times when he gets quite, especially towards the end of the book, there's a couple of stories that are quite dark, really, where he talks about like his mental health. And I think it's quite a common theme in biographies from comedians, where you realise just, because I think it was Victoria Wood, I think it was Victoria Wood, it was Victoria Wood who said that when it comes to comedians, they're either depressed or play golf, or they do both. And Victoria Wood self-proclaims that she was on the depression side herself, and at least she didn't have to wear the horrible trousers for when you play golf. But, you know, I laugh about it, but it's a very real thing to see depression in comedians. As some of the most famous comedians in the world and comic actors, we later found out about the darkness they were going through. I mean, I think Robin Williams is probably one of the first examples that comes to my mind when we found out about what his mental health was like, especially towards the end of his life. Yeah, it's really sad to read about kind of that, especially in somebody who can make comedy from, to be fair, I think it's kind of a bit of a talent that they have, where they can find the comedy in the darkness. And I think that's ultimately what comedy is. When you look at like the raw stories coming from comedians and comedy, they can take something so dark and help you kind of see the funny moments in it. And I find that such an incredible thing that somebody can do. Because at the end of the day with comedy, especially observational comedy, it's stuff that you can identify with. And I think that's what makes comedy such a great thing, where you can take something like the Mandraw or the way different names are spelt and how they're pronounced. And if you're not sure what I'm talking about, I'm speaking of people like Michael McIntyre and Eddie Izzard. I love Eddie Izzard. I've actually seen both Michael McIntyre and Eddie Izzard live, and they were absolutely incredible. With Michael McIntyre, when I saw him, I think it was in 2010 I saw him at Manchester Arena, and he had this whole section in the second half of the show where he was talking about the spellings of names and how we should be able to pronounce them differently, like the name Sarah and then Sarah with a H with a Sarah. And it made us think with the fact that my sister's name is Claire and it's got an I in it, so it would be Claire Aya. My mum's name is Yvette. Who knows how that would be pronounced, because it's Yveette. And my name is Deborah, which is spelled Deborah, so that's a Deborah. There's actually a woman at work who actually calls me Deborah, which I'm absolutely fine with. As you can see, it's got that comedy that you can all relate to and just like, oh wait, yeah, I can identify with that. And that's what David Sedaris is so good at doing in this book, where you can identify with stuff that he has done and the things that he comments on. It's really cool to hear about the stuff about his sister Amy, Amy Sedaris. If you don't know who she is, she's an American comedian, and she sounds like somebody I'd like to have a drink with, because she just sounds so funny in real life. He talked about a time when she had to go to a photo shoot and everybody was getting all dolled up, and she went to the makeup artist and said, "Have you got any fake blood?" It was just like, that sounds like me so much. I remember in kind of earlier when I was like doing lots of like student films and things after uni, and I was killed quite a lot, I'll admit. I've been strangled, I've been stabbed, I worked at York Dungeons for a bit as well, so I got to work a lot with fake blood, and I ended up doing a corporate video about the NHS, and I mentioned to the makeup artist I'd done a lot of stuff where I was killed, and it was just like, it felt weird to be doing something where I was just you know, alive. And to make me feel at home, she brought in a little package of fake blood and scratch and stuff, and it was just like, just to make you feel at home. It was a weird thing to say, but it's just like having that fake blood on the counter next to me while I was getting my makeup done. It was just like, oh, bless you, you're making me feel at home by reminding me of the times I've been killed. But yeah, this was just such a funny book, having that glimpse into his life in North Carolina and his life in Paris and his relationships as a gay man and his life as a gay man and how people reacted to that. Because I think this book was published in around 2000, I think. Let me just double check. Yeah, originally published in 2000, so it's like 22 years old, this book. So, you know, there's stuff that... I mean, I think there was some stuff in there which was a little bit on the nose, but it was one of those things where it's just like 2000 was 22 years ago, and you know, times have changed. I'm sure there'll be stuff that we'll be looking back on in another 10 years and thinking, wow, why did we think that was okay? And there are some things in here that are just a little bit on the nose like that, but ultimately I'd say it's a bit of a product of its time, and I'm sure that David Sedaris will look back on this and just think, yeah, maybe that was a bit on the nose, but ultimately that was his life at the time, and yeah, it's just entertaining, funny. This one it's not actually that long a book. It's 272 pages, so it's not the longest book in the world. I'll admit it did take me a while to read it because I was reading other books through it, and I've been very busy at work. I feel like it's been non-stop with both my jobs and rehearsals for the show and everything, but I did finish it. I finally finished it. It was a very, very good book, very funny. If you like David Sedaris, even if you don't know who he is, which is where I was when I started reading this book, it was still so entertaining to read. But yeah, Me Talk Pretty One Day by David Sedaris. That is today's book. So thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. Mwah! Bye, my lovelies.